Hey everybody, Dimitri at the National Posture Institute, and today I wanted to bring some advice for those of you that work with clients that are suffering from low back pain, and one activity in particular at home that can really flare up the amount of pain they're experiencing while they're working with you to improve their posture and reduce the low back pain or completely get rid of it. That activity is picking up a laundry basket. Mechanically speaking, it's very similar. It's pretty much the same thing as doing a deadlift in the gym. Now, the first point I wanted to cover before I get to kind of the actual movement and applying the 4 points of posture correctly is how wide the stance should be. Some people believe that a wider stance is okay, while others believe that maybe a more narrow stance that's shoulder width apart is optimal. And we do subscribe to more of the latter belief that a stance that is about a hip to shoulder width apart is ideal. The reason why is we feel that the wider the stance, if somebody doesn't have straight joint structures, which a very small percentage of our population are actually born with joints like knees that are, as an example, that are perfectly straight. Most of us have some form of lateral or medial bowing, if you will, in the knee area. And so if you have a client that does have this issue also, the wider the stance, what you see is as you're doing the movement, your hips are essentially going through one plane of motion, your knees are going through a separate plane of motion, and your ankles even further out a third separate plane of motion. And that can amplify the amount of lateral and medial stresses that you have to contend with to try to keep your joints straight while doing this movement. The reason why is, your joints are connected by the muscle structures and the skeletal structures. And so those all do pull a play, especially if you have tight muscles, in adding the lateral or medial stresses. But with a shoulder width stance, what that does, it helps keep the hip, knee, and ankle more in one straight plane of motion, reducing the amount of difficulty it can be for clients, especially if they're new to posture, for being able to maintain proper alignment in their lower body. Because if they're going down and their knees are bending in, you really got to focus on keeping their knees out. But the wider out you go, the more difficult that can be for them. So with that in mind, wanting to keep about a shoulder width stance, as you're going down, another thing you need to look for in your client is their pelvis. As you're going down, if as an example they have really tight hamstrings, that can limit how far down they can safely go. Because you'll get to a situation where if they're going down, they have tight hamstrings, that's actually going to cause, and it's a very slight movement, but their pelvis to slightly roll under because their hamstrings aren't healthy enough or flexible enough to allow for this motion to occur all the way down through a full range of motion. Now, in a fitness setting, what we would do is we would limit that person, if they were doing squats as an example, to only squatting down to just before their pelvis rolls under, and then we would work with them to reinforce proper movement pattern and posture principles. We would work with them to increase their flexibility, so over time they can start going lower and lower, because we never want somebody to do a motion repetitively in poor alignment. We always want to try to maintain as much as possible those proper posture principles. So you definitely want to look for that. So they may, before they can properly squat down to pick this up, you may need to give them some extra flexibility exercises to be able to work on their flexibility to improve this. Now, with that said, as they're going down, another issue you have to look at is when you're trying to maintain the 4 points, you want to keep your shoulders retracted, keep your head tucked back, so you don't want them looking down, and you don't want them rounding their shoulders to pick it up. Right now, my back is pretty well protected, but my shoulders are really rounding forward to get this. And with the way the basket is faced right now, it's really wide, so not only do I kind of have to lean over more to grab the basket because of where my knees are, I have to I could round my shoulders, but if I keep them retracted, I have to squat down really far, reach forward, and then I really have to use my anterior deltoids to get this motion to where the basket can get around my knees. Now, if you have an older adult client and they're doing this motion, they're really leaning forward, so they could fall forward. A way to alleviate this or really reduce the risk of the fall, if it's an older client, is just have them rotate the basket around. So now it's facing like this. like I would say perpendicular to them. And then as they squat down, you can keep them in their shoulder width to a slightly wider stance so their feet are a little bit wider than the basket, but not so wide that they're really fighting those additional lateral medial forces. Now as they go down, they can reach, they don't have to reach as far, so they kind of reach down here, pick up the basket like this, while maintaining that proper shoulder retraction and the head back. So again, they're coming down, they're looking down with their eyes, not their whole head, and they're picking up like this. You know, the basket, you may have to load the basket to where the weight is closer towards the body, so it's not leaning so far forward, but by doing that, it can really help with this movement. Instead of having it again like this, maybe needing to get a wider stance and having to go down further and lean forward more. Now, lastly, what I would honestly recommend instead of a laundry basket like this is really getting something more like this, which honestly is just a dirty hamper or a dirty laundry basket hamper. But because it is taller, you know, now they don't have to worry about squatting down as far, so they can much better maintain proper alignment as they go through this, as well as shoulder retraction and keeping their head back. Now this would be the most ideal for older adult clients, because you don't want them squatting so far down that they have to lean too far forward and then really move their head over their center of gravity. That just can throw them off and make them fall. So it's much better to have something like this compared to something like this. So in closing, this is Dimitri at the National Posture Institute. If you have any questions about the mechanics of this movement, feel free to let us know. And don't forget to share this information with your clients. Thanks.
Be sure to like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube page for more free videos, and don't forget to share with family and friends in need of posture advice, and also let us know if you have any questions.